Good afternoon. We now call the meeting of the Technical Coordinating Committee to order at 2:32. Please give your attention to the short video.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Emily. Can you please conduct roll call?
Member Chen,
Here.
Member Conradi,
Here.
Member Diaz,
Here.
Member Doe,
Here.
Member Fahey,
Here.
Member Golier,
Here.
Member Greenblatt,
Here.
Member Levine,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Member Stamps,
Here.
Member Wertz,
Here.
Vice Chair Pillai,
Yep.
Chair Weeks.
Here.
Right, and apologies, Member Alt Lockman.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum with members Boardman, LaBelle, McLean, Nelson, Ortiz, Panganiban, Rohani, absent.
Okay, thank you for reading through that. Appreciate it. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand, and staff or I will call upon you. Emily, do we have any written or remote public comments today?
We do not have any written or remote public comments.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment item. We are moving on.
Chair Weeks.
Yes, please.
Leah Greenblatt with West Contra Costa Transportation Commission. This is going to come up later in terms of the edits to the minutes, but I did want to find out about the last time we met, we had a big discussion about the ITP. I think those are the right abbreviations. I don't know if staff can give us an update on what's going on or when we can expect to find new information on that.
Yeah, I don't have personally an update on that at this time, but we can look at discussing that a little later. Does that sound right, Emily? What would be the best time to discuss that in our agenda?
So what I can do, so Ying is currently away from the office. She's out of the office. So Danielle Elkins, I'm not sure if any of you have been introduced to her. She's our new Deputy Executive Director for Planning and Programs. And I can go ahead and give you her contact information. She'd be the one you want to reach out to regarding that right now.
It's not a personal thing. It's
Right.
it's an action from the group. So I don't know. I can work with, I guess, Chair Weeks to figure out what's going on with that.
Yeah, there's a leave involved in part of this that's delaying the response at this time. So, but I'll be happy to speak with you after the meeting to see if we can get an update and share it with the whole group. That good? Yes, Member Greenblatt, are we good with that for now? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that still concludes our public comment item. We are now moving on to the consent calendar. Are there any changes or comments from the committee, or does anyone want to pull an item?
I'd like to pull item A.
Item A?
Hang on, the minutes. Damn it, they had it right in front of me. Consent calendar, yeah, yes, 3A. technical
3A.
Summary of actions, basically the minutes.
Okay. We will pull item 3A. Any other items that we wish to pull at this time? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes with item 3A removed?
No, those are the minutes. I mean, you're asking for a vote on the consent calendar?
Yes, the consent
except for
calendar.
item 3A.
Yes, with 3A removed. Yeah, I just need someone to make a motion, sorry.
So moved.
Okay, Member
Seconded.
Smith? Okay. First from Member Smith, second from Member Greenblatt. Okay, that moves us to item 4 on our agenda, or do we
So
need
we
to
public-
discuss 3A at this time?
Yeah, public comments, and then we'll vote to approve the consent calendar without 3A and, or if
Okay.
you want to discuss 3A and then vote.
Okay,
um,
would you guys like to discuss it at this time, just after we move through public comment?
I don't know if 2CTA has any specific parliamentary procedures, but typically for something like this, you take a vote on the remaining consent items and then move immediately to the item that was pulled.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. I think that's what I was trying to do there. Okay, but we do need to take public comment on the remaining items,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So do we have any written or public comment online on this agenda item
No
3?
written or public comments.
Okay, great. So that moves us to 3A here, so we could discuss it at this time.
So we could go ahead and vote first and then 3A.
Vote first. Okay, well, let's do that.
Okay. All right, Member Chen,
Aye.
Member Conrady,
Yes.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Doe,
Yes.
Member Fahey,
Yes.
Member Golier,
Yes.
Member Greenblatt,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Alt Lockman,
Yes.
Member Stamps. Sorry, and then Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Wertz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pillai,
Yes.
Chair Weeks.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously with members present.
Okay, so now that we've approved that item without 3A, I think it's time to talk about 3A. So who wants to lead that? Member Greenblatt, did you want to start or?
Mr. Chair,
Member
since I
Smith?
pulled the item.
Okay, go for it.
It would be okay. Yeah, so I'd like to make some corrections to the record on there, specifically with regard to the ITP presentation, which is item 4B on the minutes here. The action taken by this committee was specifically to adopt a resolution, not approve a request. But it was to adopt a resolution for, staff to provide this additional information, and that additional information be provided at the next following TCC meeting, which would be today.
Okay, do we have notes on that, Emily, and we could make those adjustments?
I do, yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
Member Greenblatt?
I have some specific language that I'd like to see if that helps things, because I know it was a complicated resolution when we were working on it. that
Yes,
day.
so thank you for doing that, and we'll be recording it and making sure we get it correctly here.
Okay, so looking at item 4B in the minutes, there's the action Member Greenblatt moved to adopt a resolution to request that staff develop a schedule that includes the meeting dates of the regional transportation planning committees, their technical advisory committees, and the technical coordinating committee, and to provide corresponding work products under review for those meetings, and provide the schedule update at the next TCC meeting. And then it goes on, it's seconded by Member Smith and yada, yada, yada.
Okay, and we don't have an update on that today, just, no, it's, we've been hinting at that, so maybe that's something we add to the end. Okay, so are you comfortable with that, Emily, as far as having enough material to provide the adjustment that we need to see for 3A for the next approval?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, thank you.
In that case, I perhaps would like to make a motion that we adopt item 3A as amended by Committee Member Greenblatt.
I'll second that. And thank you for the work you did on that. And can we have a vote on that, Emily, when you have a second?
I Member Chen,
Yes.
Member Conrady,
Yes.
Member Diaz,
Yes.
Member Doe,
Yes.
Member Fahey,
Yes.
Member Golier,
Goalie, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Member Greenblatt,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Alt Lockman,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Stamps,
Yes.
Member Wertz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Play,
Yes.
Chair Weeks.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously with members present.
Okay, thank you everyone for your input. And we've now emerged from the consent items onto our first agenda item. First item is informational and will be presented by Jay Zhang to provide an update on upcoming obligation deadlines. Take it away, Jay.
Thank you, Chair Weeks. Good afternoon, committee members. Let me share my screen here. Jay Zhang, Associate Engineer at CCTA. This is an informational item. This is our standing item to report on the monitoring effort of staff here. So first up, we have the STIP projects. There's no major updates on the STIP side of things from the last time we met. There are a couple extension requests and reprogramming or amendment requests that are in the works that could be on the CDC calendar in June. Other than that, there will be a 2026 STIP call for project coming up, and that's on the agenda as the next item. So I'll be doing a short presentation on that as well. Moving on to STP CMAQ projects. As you can see, we only have 2 more programming years remaining on the OBAC program. So just want to remind everyone to be mindful of the upcoming obligation deadlines and RFA deadlines. So you can see some of these dates are approaching. Field review in July, NEPA in October and such. So just want to remind everyone to be to look out for those dates. Moving on to ATP ATP projects. There are 2 updates for the ATP Cycle 6 projects. The project in San Pablo is moving to submit a extension request at the June CTC meeting, and the county's project will submit requests for allocation for the PSE phase in May to CTC. And then lastly, the FHWA inactive project list. It's a very short list this time, so appreciate everyone's effort in submitting the invoices. So just keep up that good work and keep this list short. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take on any questions.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Are there any comments from the committee at this time? Okay, seeing none, if anyone would like to speak from the public, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff, or I will call upon you. Emily, do we have any written or remote public comments?
We do not have any written or remote public comments.
Okay, thank you, Jay. But you can't leave yet. The next item is informational and will also be presented by Jay regarding the 2026 STIP process. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're starting the 2026 STIP call for project process. So just to provide a little bit of background information on the program, the CTC adopts the 5-year STIP program every 2 years. to add 2 new programming years to the STIP. So the 2026 STIP will cover the 5-year period from fiscal year 26-27 to fiscal year 30-31. So there are 2 programs within the STIP, the Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or the RTIP, and the Interregional Transportation Improvement Program, the ITIP. So 75% of the funding from STIP will fund the RTIP, and the remaining 25% will go to the ITIP. So the RTIP is further divided by formula into county shares. So CCTA's role is to establish a list of projects to be funded by RTIP by October to submit to MTC. We won't know how much is available in the RTIP until the CDC adopts the fund estimate in August of 2025. And in terms of eligibility, any capital projects, roadway, bike paths, highway expansions, or rail line extension can all be eligible for the SIP funding. In terms of schedule, the highlighted ones are, I guess, more relevant to this committee and the sponsors. So today I'm bringing the screening and scoring criteria, the call for projects to you for review and recommendation, and also form a subcommittee to evaluate the projects. And in April, the authority will approve the call for projects, and then we'll release the call for projects after the authority approves the item. And sponsors have a little bit, about a month and a half to prepare applications, which will be due on June 6th. Along with the applications, sponsors need to submit draft project study reports or PSR equivalent. And then later in June, the subcommittee that's formed today will take on the effort to evaluate the applications that are received. And then in July, I'll be bringing back the project list as well as the application scores back to this committee for review and approval. And later on in September, we'll be bringing that list to our board again for approval to submit to MTC. And then we'll submit that list in late October to MTC. And then MTC will approve the list for the entire Bay Area County in late December of this year and submit that to CTC for approval. So the final adoption will be by March of 2026. And just to touch upon some of the screening criteria, there's no major changes from the last cycle in 2024. So I'll just go down the list. I guess except for one, number 7, I'll get to that in a bit. So project must be consistent with the regional transportation plan. So in our case, will be the Plan Bay Area 2050. The project must be in a congestion management plan. Again, the candidate projects must submit a draft PSR or PSR equivalent along with the application by June 6th. And then the final PSR should be submitted no later than October 3rd, 2025. So the funds must be allocated for the phases, must be allocated for those phases in fiscal year 29-30 or 30-31. And those phases must be fully funded with the STIP funding and other funding sources. Current STIP projects cannot seek additional funds for the same phase. Number 6, the projects must solve any existing problem related to safety, capacity, and/or operations. 7, the requested STIP funds must be for capital improvements project and must be at least $2 million. So this is an increase of $1 million from the last cycle. Number 8, roadway projects must be on collector roads or above, as classified by Caltrans California Road System maps. Number 9, the STIP funding are federalized, so the sponsors must be willing to go through the Caltrans Local Assistance Program for their federal process. Number 10, projects that are operational in nature must show commitment of operations and maintenance for the life of the project. And lastly, applications are limited to no more than 2 per jurisdiction. In terms of scoring, these are the categories that the applications will be scored under. For safety system productivity, it will be 25 points. Congestion relief, 25 points. Strategic expansion, 15 points. Meeting SB 375 goals is greenhouse gas reduction, 10 points. Other secured funds, 5 points. And if it's on the Measure J strategic plan, it will receive additional 20 points for a total of 100 points. So for the subcommittee that will be hopefully formed today, we're asking for 10 members from from TCC, 2 members from each RTPC for a total of 8 members, and 2 additional members from transit agencies. CCTA staff, most likely will be me, will facilitate the in-person scoring process and develop a project list in June. And that list will come back to the TCC in July, as mentioned earlier. So here, just a list of projects, not comprehensive, but a list of projects from the past programming. Thank you, Stephanie, for putting this together. So I highlighted some of them just to show kind of the diversity of the project that are eligible. So you have railway station projects, BART extension projects, bike and ped projects, Bay Trail gap closure, truck climbing lane, pedestrian overcrossing, express lane, and adaptive ramp metering and ITS projects. So really a diverse list of projects that can apply for this funding source. So I encourage everyone to take a look and identify some projects. And with that, staff seeks recommendations on the screening and scoring criteria and nomination of a subcommittee to evaluate submitted projects. And with that, I'm open for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Appreciate the second presentation also. Do we have any questions from the committee at this time? Clarifications? Member Doe? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you noticed. Okay. Hi, Jay. So question about the inclusion as a Measure J project. That should be an active project, correct? Like you said, within the strategic plan, the project should be included in the strategic plan, the Measure J strategic plan, or like what are the criteria as a Measure J project?
I'm not sure if it has to be active. Like if you have Measure J funding in one phase and you're looking for like construction,
Okay.
that might still be, you might still receive that 20 points to be on that list.
Okay, but a continuation of a current.
Right, I believe that's the case, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions from the committee or clarifications at this time? Oh, Member Pillai.
I'm just curious, how much total funding is available for the cities to compete?
So we won't know the exact number until CTC adopts the fund estimate in August. So we're starting ahead of that time to allow enough time for the local sponsors to submit applications. Last cycle, we had about 11.5 million for those 2 years, 2 additional years. But really it fluctuates, really depends on the estimate that's completed by CDC. I know there are cycles where we didn't receive any funding because of COVID. And there are cycles where we receive 30+ million. So it fluctuates. So I can't really say for sure how much. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Pillai. Are there other questions or clarifications at this time?
I'm
Member
just
William.
wondering, can someone be on the subcommittee and also submit an application?
Yes, so you can, but during the scoring process, you won't be able to score on the application that your city submitted. So
It's a good question. Any other questions or clarifications at this time? And the only question I have is just the process of what you'd like today. I know that there's a lot of, you're looking for a lot of people here, so I want to make sure that we understand correctly what you're looking for. It looks like you said 2 from each RTPC. And are you looking to get those done today as in this meeting, or are you looking to get them sent by the RTPCs at a future date?
Yeah, that could be done. You know, I know there are RTPC meetings where you can still nominate more people to the subcommittee. If we can't get the 10 people today, then yeah,
Okay, but ideally, we would be
Ideally
able to
today,
work
yeah.
in this room.
right.
Okay, and is there a process you'd like us to follow today for this? Should we just go through each RTPC and see if we have volunteers?
Yeah, you can nominate yourself if you want to. So.
Wait a minute. I
Well,
already
not
have a
you
job.
specifically, but you know, everyone.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it makes sense to go through it by RTPC and just see if we have just enough volunteers, and that will make
Yeah.
it easiest. So how do you want to start? Do you want to lead it, Emily, or how would you like to proceed?
I'll let you lead and Jay take the lead and form however you guys want to form the discussion. And, you know, if you're going RTPC by RTPC, that's fine.
Okay, I think that's probably best. And I don't know everybody who's involved in all the other RTPCs, but I'll take the lead with starting with SWAT. I know we have several SWAT members on our committee. So is there anybody here who is willing and interested in signing up at this time to be part of this?
Member Levine, I would volunteer for SWAT, or from SWAT, I should say.
Okay, thank you for putting your name in the hat. Appreciate that. Is there any other members of SWAT who'd like to do this?
I'll put my name in the hat as well.
Thank you, Member Goya. Okay, so shall we move to Westcat next? Anybody want to lead the discussion on Westcat?
So for transit agencies, there are 2 total. So between Westcat, Tri-Delta, and County Connection.
Okay, so they're
We
already
only need
appointed?
2. What's that?
They're already appointed?
No. We only need 2 from the transit agencies.
Ah,
You
okay,
said,
all right, all right. So maybe we could do the transit agencies, all of them at once. How about that?
Right.
Okay, so do we have volunteers from our transit agencies that want to put their name in the hat at this time?
I feel like we should Rochambeau for who doesn't have to do it.
I did it last time.
So this is the whole county, so there's the 3 plus BART plus AC, so 5.
Yes, 5,
Of which there's only 3 of us represented here today, correct?
right.
Uh,
So if we could have all of you, that would be amazing. But if you
But you
can't
only
do
need
that.
2, right?
Yeah, you only need 2.
I was actually just pulling up my calendar for June to see, that's where it falls on. Sure, if you need somebody, I can.
Thank you. We
What was
appreciate
the
it.
date again?
So I'll send out a survey for the exact date, but it's sometime between June 9th to 27th, but it's only be a 1 day between those dates.
I'll volunteer, Finworth from Westcat.
Oh, thank you, Member Works. Appreciate that. Okay, so that's pretty good.
Yes,
So I'd
yeah,
say let's
4.
let's stop with the transit agencies now. Thank you, guys. And you can say you did it last time, next time.
Well, and for what it's worth also, I do want to recognize, I know, we all help each other out. And for example, Stephanie Hu was on our interview panel for hiring an on-call engineer over at County Connection just a few weeks ago. So gave up like half her day for that. So just appreciate that. Happy to help.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, since we're on the W's, how about we could do WICTAC? We want to see, do we have 2 representatives who would like to put their name in the hat to help out?
I'd say I might have volunteered previously, but this time it's not the kind of vacation reading that I envisioned, so I'm going to be out.
Okay. Do we have anybody else who'd like to help out? Okay, thank you, Al. And do we need 2 from WICTAC? Jay?
Yes, 2 from each.
And we have
RTPC.
1.
Yeah.
Who else here is from WICTAC?
Hi there.
Hello.
Can an alternate member do it? I have more time than a full member.
That's a question for Jay, maybe. Are you comfortable with
Yes,
that?
alternate members can.
Okay, yes, I can be a part of it.
Okay, thank you. Alternate member Lockman. Appreciate that. Okay, and then we have Transpac and Transplant, right?
Yes.
So, do you want to do Transpac first? That sounds like a good idea.
I think I might be the only one from Transpac
Okay.
here, so I guess I'll volunteer, but
Oh, thank you.
it's hard to volunteer those that didn't show up, so that might have to be a person to be named later.
Yeah, that is fine.
Okay, that's one step towards. So thank you. Appreciate that, member Jay. And that leaves us with Transpac. So do we have two members from Transpac who are willing to help us out? We're almost there. Take us over the line. Oh, Transplant, sorry.
Transplant,
Yes.
yeah.
Too much transing.
I can volunteer.
Thank you, member Black. We need one more. Or we can come at a later date and harass you over email. Anybody want to step up for that? No? Okay, sounds like we're crickets here for a second, so it looks like you had a little bit of work to do to fill two more spots.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can take the lead on that. If you need assistance, we'll be happy to help. Okay, thank you, everybody, for volunteering. Really appreciate it. I know we're all super busy and been told we need to focus on our work, but we want to help out too. So thank you for balancing those impulses. I think at this time, I should say, if anybody would, unless there's further comments from the committee. Is there further comments from the committee on this? Member
Okay,
Golier?
were you also asking for comments on the criteria?
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, would you like to start? If you
Okay,
have a
I'll,
comment?
I have a question. You've got 25 points against congestion relief. But all types of projects are eligible, including ped bike projects. And so I'm just wondering how relatively high number of points towards congestion relief, which would imply a road project or a vehicle project, would that tip the scales, I guess, in terms of negating any consideration of ped bike improvement projects?
Stephanie, you want to help me out?
I think in the past, you may not get full points for bike ped projects under congestion relief, but you may score higher on the SB 375 goals or think in some of these, it talks about in the table, I don't have it in front of us, the scoring, there's different criterias where there's points for those bike ped projects. I don't know.
Yeah,
In
the
the
tables should
score,
be
in the
in the
tables,
packet.
if you look more closely, each of them have criterias where, or areas where you can score that's not all about like traffic congestion. So I would, I think we can lower that if the group desires. And I think through the menu of projects that Jay flashed in that last slide, that include actually a mix of projects that are actually a wide range where POC, like pedestrian overcrossing projects, actually there's a few of them here scored well to get funding. So that category maybe is leaning more towards, congestion relief, but I think there are other categories of scoring, of the scores that you can hit a higher score than, a traditional congestion relief program type of projects. But we're happy to go through it closer if the group desires to change those scores, and that's why we're bringing it here.
Are there any follow-on questions from that particular question? Do you want to ask more about that one, Member Greenblatt, or?
Well, just in terms of the scoring criteria,
Yes.
I guess I'd like a little bit more explanation, and I think it relates to what Member Golier says is, how is safety and system productivity lumped together. I would think of those two items as separate, and maybe I'm not understanding how one relates to the other.
So are we back on the congestion or are we on safety? I just want to make sure. So Jay has flashed or put up the score table online on here, sorry, on screen. If you can zoom in, maybe it's really small. Oh, there you go. Oh, yes, okay. So are we back on congestion or do you want to tackle the
I
safety?
was just looking at the staff report page in the packet. It's page 4B-4.
It's lagging. Are you talking about the score, the table with all the scores added up? Leah? Which,
This table?
Yeah, I just, what's system productivity and why is it with safety?
if Jay goes back to this table, you scroll up a little bit. Up. Yeah, so this is safety and system productivity. So you can actually do both. You can use either table depending on the type of project, but safety is really addressing either accident per vehicle miles, or if it's a, more of a roadway project. But if you're more of a bike ped project, for example, it's probably better suited to do table B, where you can get your scores to address any type of safety, past accident data that you can obtain for an intersection, for example, if you're doing more of a complete streets or bike ped project. If you scroll down, I think there is the impact value for safety. It's also for, part of the score also uses this table to see what elements you're constructing or you're proposing to implement per your project. It doesn't have to be construction, I guess. Different elements of a project can yield a better or a greater impact and therefore get a higher score. But I think you're asking why it's called system productivity, is that there's a separate table where you would also address that part of the score. So it's kind of tied together in terms of the productivity and safety under a single category, but there's different tables to create that score in that one line.
Is it
If that's-
possible to separate safety and system productivity?
The score sheet. I think it does, actually.
For those online, we're looking up the answer to the question.
I'm just concerned because, I get what safety is, but then I'm looking on page 4B-31 of the packet, which is table D, and
I think
you check applicable direct benefits, and it says project results in the improved ability to sustain high-speed operation.
so. So the score sheet is shown now. Sorry, I was going off a little bit by memory. So
So what?
it is separated here.
What page is that in the packet?
Sorry, it's attachment E. We're putting up per file, so sorry, Leah, if it's not, we don't have a PDF of complete packet, but in the scoring sheet, so you go through that table that Jay flashed earlier and get your numbers, and you put it in the score sheet, and it is separated in terms of safety and system productivity. So if your project hits both of these, then you will get a bigger score. Like if your project is solely addressing safety, for example, and nothing on system productivity, then you will get a lower score where it's highlighted green. And if your project tackles, tackles both, then you will have a score for the pink highlight and then a score for the green, and then you'll get a bigger score for category I, safety/system productivity. So it is separated in this, but if you say we want to just totally separate it out, we can, I think, do that. We can adjust the scoring table to just create another category if you all feel like that's helpful and useful. But they are both, you know, as the score, a unique score is going to be produced under safety and also under system productivity.
I'm trying to think of that phrase where you have two things that are kind of oppose one
Competing.
another.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And when I
Yeah.
read this line about that system productivity, that you want to improve the ability to sustain high-speed operations,
Mm.
that seems in
Op-
many ways to be counteractive,
yeah, no.
counteract a safety
Sure.
benefit that a project might
Yeah,
have.
I can
So I
see
would definitely like to see them
broken out.
separated,
Okay.
and then, you know, we can discuss how those points get awarded, but I
Yeah.
think safety's a high
Sure.
priority.
Yeah, no, I think that could be easily done to separate that and so here, yeah, I think we can do that because it's just math. We just need to separate and create like a separate category.
Okay, thank you. That was interesting. Member Levine, did you want to add to that or a different
I
issue?
have two comments going
Thank you.
back to the initial comment about, I believe, not level of service, but about congestion. So if you're only looking at vehicle congestion as it stands, would we be able to evaluate some type of pedestrian congestion? I'm not recommending trying to do level of service for pedestrians, but you could do, I don't think it'd be that difficult to try to put in something that's quantitative about, you know, a new crosswalk could shorten crossing distances that may not exist. So therefore, you're actually improving pedestrian congestion under that other criteria that was mentioned before.
Yeah, so I think I know the forms or the tables may, you know, there's a lot of numbers that appear to be pretty prescriptive, but in the past, when the group gets together to score the projects, there's actually a lot of discussions where there are opportunities for more flexibility or leeway to explain or providing more points as a group. So in the past, if we had enough members, and it seems like we will in the evaluation committee, they would separate into two groups and they would come up with the independent score for the two groups and they come together and discuss. And I think Jay, I'm not sure he mentioned it, like we're not in charge of scoring, we're just there to facilitate. So if the group all agree a certain type of project, like bike ped, for example, the scoring is not totally capturing all its benefit, or it should be awarded higher points, but maybe not totally able to do so with these tables, because this is trying its best to kind of cover different types of project. I think we would give that flexibility to the evaluators to give more points if there's consensus that a project is worthy of more points, but they are unable to do so with this guidance that we have here. So I would offer that, I guess, in terms of what we have here in front of us. And I understand here in Table G, it seems like it is all a level of service for vehicles. But if you're saying you're building this bike ped project and it alleviates a lot of congestion for people biking and it's not addressed here, I would recommend if we were at the group to provide that opportunity for the groups to give it more scores and for the evaluators to come up with that score and justify it. And we will bring it back to the committee to explain that situation if that arises.
Appreciate that. I think that's very helpful. And I also just want to mention that the previous score that we're looking at with the safety versus basically throughput, those two things definitely do seem at loggerheads and just contradictory to Vision Zero. So I'm glad that you've looked at that, or I'm glad that you heard and acknowledged us.
Yeah, no, that's why we bring it here. So thanks for the comments.
Okay, thank you, Member Levine. Are there any other comments on the scoring criteria or any aspects of this appointment? Oh, Member Chen.
Yeah, just a quick question on the one that it was discussed earlier to separate it. Are we, how are we weighting it? Are we just weighting it equally? Is that the proposal? I don't have anything in mind. I'm just asking the question. Because
I guess I will leave it to the group. I think it's a math exercise from what I'm looking at. I think we need to just go back. But if you say, I think this maximum score is 25 under that line item. So if you guys say split it equally, 12 and a half for each, we can do that. Or if you want to say one is worth more than the other, I think that's discretion of this group that we can discuss here.
Do you want to make a proposal, Member Chen, about the?
no, I
weighting?
don't have a proposal. It was just simply me asking the question, to see what the group thinks.
Member Fahey?
I'm just curious how this worked out last time. I assume this was the same criteria. If anyone was on the group last year or 2 years ago?
So last year, we only had one project, which is the Moraga bike ped roundup. I'm saying it wrong, at Bollinger and St. Mary's. Yeah, so actually that was a bike ped project and it scored higher than the 3 or 4 applications that we received. So, yeah.
I can add on to that because I was
You were yeah.
I was on the committee. Really what stood out in terms of the winning project was whether you were a Measure J project, because it gave you 20 points, because the rest of the projects were not. So it was really clear and it was very easy to identify which project had the most points, and there was no competition, basically. That's what I remember very clearly.
Yeah, I think if all things being equal,
Yeah.
the Measure J project does have an advantage. I think that was to really advance the delivery of the Measure J strategic plan menu of projects, and give those that have the extra opportunity to fill funding gap. So that's why it's there. And there's still projects on our strategic plan that's not fully funded for delivery. That's sort of an incentive for our project sponsors to have projects as part of the Measure J portfolio.
Any other recommendations as far as how to weight this? I just want to make sure we got Member Chen's question addressed. Does anybody propose at this time manipulating the number in some way or proposing changing the number? Member Greenblatt?
Exactly what I was thinking, and I appreciate you raising that point. So I'm just throwing this out there for discussion, but what about safety is 20 points, system productivity is 15 points, and congestion relief is 15 points?
Can you say it one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'm just manipulating the top two, basically, and hopefully my math is right.
Yeah.
So safety at 20 points,
Mhm.
system productivity at 15, and congestion relief at 15.
And the
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, Member Doe?
And the definitions of system productivity will differ for highway versus transit. So it's kind of, we have to understand the criteria for both. Just, because if we're going to discuss it, we have to know the definitions of what we're talking about too. That could be helpful to look at while we have
Okay.
this discussion.
Member Bly?
Actually, that was one of my questions also. How do we, is there a definition for all these criteria put somewhere so that, when you're evaluating system productivity,
Yeah,
what
it's in
is?
the score sheet, like that we
that'll
were
be-
flashing, it's explained in some of the attachments. So as Member Doe explained, there's separate score sheets for transit versus non-transit projects. So it means different things depending on the application, but, so yeah, I think that's a good thing to note.
The only thing that makes me think of this is if we do, and it sounds like we're planning to separate safety and system productivity and give them, they're both their own separate scores. And that has congestion relief with a pretty big number, 25 compared to all the other categories. So kind of the optics of that are a little weird because it just looks like all we're trying to do is make things go faster. So I think what Member Greenblatt is doing would help with that. But anybody else want to chime in here? Member Golier? Oh, you guys both had your lights on. Sorry. Member Fahey, he pointed at you first.
I guess before we get too far into starting to divvy up points, I was looking more at the Measure J 20-point quick loss if you're not on that list, when we're not even, some of the projects on the Measure J strategic plan have kind of dropped way low on agencies' priorities, so we're looking at other projects. So if we're losing 20 points right out of the gate, because those aren't our priorities anymore, I guess I'd entertain lowering that number. And then on the other secured funds, you've raised the ask to 2 million. Did the scoring criteria go up with that, or did it stay the same? So now,
So
I
I
was
think,
looking at it
yeah, the reason why we
So-
upped to 2 million is we also got feedback from staff like MTC thinking that, for a small amount to go through the CTC process or allocation doesn't seem to be worthwhile. So we sort of took that advisement that, maybe 2 million should be the minimum threshold. But, all of this is up for your comments. If you feel like putting back to 1 million would be easier, that's the proposed approach. And then your Measure J, your note about Measure J, I think, I assume you all know what projects your agency has on the list. I can think of a couple for the county, so I'm just, just something to think about. I mean, but like I said, traditionally, that was there to advance a lot of our Measure J portfolio of projects. And you're correct, the list is shorter than it was in the past, obviously. So, yeah, that can be, we can open that discussion up as well if you think 20 is too much.
I'm just curious how isn't the Measure J points, isn't that part of strategic expansion? It seems like it would be the strategy that do fund Measure J projects.
Yeah,
So,
but I
you know,
think Hisham can correct him if I'm wrong, but I think even the PBTF projects is considered a Measure J project. So it's not all just, I don't know, Byron or Vasco safety, there's a lot of TLC project, PBTF project that have shortfalls, and that is in the PBTF TLC program. I think in the form, it asks you, when you're filling out the application, it asks you for a Measure J project number. So if you can produce that and you have that as your backup, that it is a Measure J project, then you would get that 20 points. So I just want to make sure we're not just thinking about, those large like roadway, truck lane safety projects. There's some that are not that.
yeah, well, I appreciate that question, Member Fahey, because it's, especially if we have a new dollar threshold that pushes us up towards bigger projects. Maybe we could address
Yeah.
that by just dropping that threshold back a little bit, either, cut the difference and make it 1.5 or something like that to make up for that. Anybody opposed to that idea?
I guess my point to that was also just the scoring part of it, it was 50%, you got 5 points. So if you're asking for 2, now you've got to have a $4 million project. So I guess if you're gonna, are you
Yeah.
keeping with those numbers? If you keep it at 2
Yeah,
million?
so sure, yeah, maybe I guess I'm hearing the,
If I have a $3 million project and the million was the ask,
Then you
I
need to
I get
come up
my
with
5
two.
points.
Yeah.
Now my $3 million project, that $2
Understood.
million ask, I'm not gonna get the
Yeah.
points.
understood.
If I can, while still speaking to this item, although I
Go
do
ahead,
see
Member
that
Smith.
Community Member Goliar was, yeah, I don't want
Go
to.
ahead.
Back when I was working for the city of Walnut Creek, the now retired city engineer, Steve Waymeyer, once commented to me that federal funding, it's not worth going after for anything less than $1 million. And so this is one of those things where it's kind of fills in that gap. I mean, if you figure in inflation, you know, that million is probably like $1.5 million or something like that. But so I do support actually lowering the amount, you know, as well as for the reasons already stated. I think it, you know, plus it just, it gives greater opportunity to spread the money around a little bit.
Thank you for the support, Member Smith. So, I mean, we have a couple of us saying that maybe we could reduce that level of entry number to something less than 2. So are you, Member Fahey, are you open to that also? Are you,
I'm sure.
okay,
I just pointed it out, just
Yeah.
because we were starting to talk numbers on others.
yeah, sure. I'm just trying to find a place where we can,
Yeah,
Keep moving, keep
yeah,
moving.
right, yeah.
yeah, so, I don't know whether we set it back to 1 again. I'm not sure what the rationale was by CCTA to put it up to 2. So I don't want to get in the way of what,
Yeah,
if
no,
there's a
it
specific
was-
rationale, or we just put it
No,
back
it
to
was
1.
sorry, it was the comment from MTC staff that, you know, like what Andy was saying, you know, anything below $1 million seems to be too much effort to go through that process. So if y'all think 1 million is the minimum that you would want to go through the pain, then we can certainly move it back to $1 million, you know, like NEPA, CEQA sort of process, obviously.
I would like to support whatever, you know, would benefit cities, but I've worked a lot with STIP funding and it's really been restrictive and challenging. So I'm just gonna put that out there. There are a lot of restrictions and some of us have been tearing out our hair over it. So I would just say, you know, if it's worth it for you and you're willing to put in this administrative time, go for it. It's been really hard for our group. So.
Okay, well, I'll go out on a limb here and say, you know, with inflation, I think we could all hang our hat on the 1.5 for sure. And no reason to go all the way back to 1 because we don't want the pain maybe of being expected to manage a project for 1 million and have all that stuff. Are you guys, do you want to do a motion on that, or you just want to take some input on that? Oh, go ahead, Member Platt.
Just curious, since TIP funding is going to be federal, there is definitely going to be a local match for this project, right? So the extra secured funds, are you looking above and beyond the required federal match?
So STIF funding does not require a local match, but
Yeah,
if it's federalized, you do need, it is a federalized process, so you do need NEPA, for example.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, you know.
It goes to the CTC, not the local assistance route for the programming of dollars or allocation.
But I read somewhere it goes through the local assistance for, so. Yeah, I read it wrong.
Hisham could.
Here comes Hisham.
Just to confirm, there is no local match for STIP funds. If you provide matching funds, you'll score better in the application because there is a criteria here that says 5 points for other secured funds. You do go through a local assistance because of the federal portion, so you do get an E76, as well as now you have to go through a CTC process to get your allocation. So you go through 2 processes to get the funding, but they're concurrent at the same time.
And if you're worried about the federal part of the funding, you can make a request to have state-only funds. It's not guaranteed that you'll get it.
But to caveat that, like, you can ask for state-only funding, but it has to be within their capacity. Because the STIP funding is a mix of federal and state, and we don't know what that, I don't know what the mix is, 80-20 maybe. So, Yeah, it's at the discretion of the CTC. When you can ask, but they may come back and say no. But you need to be ready to be federalized. So I think you should just assume that you need to go through the federalized process.
Member Greenblatt?
I have an idea for um, the, the minimum amount. Could we, and I totally respect that, like, local jurisdictions, they should have the option of whether they apply or they should have the maximum flexibility for applying for these funds. And if they want that headache of doing it for a lesser amount, more power to them. So I'm wondering if we could make it 1 million, but add a clarifying description or note saying that, you know, there's tremendous,
Like a warning label?
yeah, a warning, yeah.
Apply at your own
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah, and that really, you know, 1.5 really should be the minimum, but we want to give you the maximum flexibility, and you could do 1 if you're up for it, but you'll feel some pain.
I guess I would just add for clarity, then we should just put it at 1, so it's not.
But I don't want somebody to misconstrue that hasn't done this before, that, oh, 1 million's okay. Like, I think, like, because more than the city engineers are looking at the application. And so maybe it's already in there and I missed it, but just
Would it be, so I'm hearing most are okay with leaving it at 1, but just be abundantly clear that there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. I know we can word it better and just be maybe extra clear on that, or maybe even listing things that are required. Would that be okay? I'm trying to move it along. So would that be a agreeable approach? We leave it at 1. We can add more information on what is required. So people go in there with clear expectations. That, I guess that's maybe staff recommendation since we're kind of going in circle.
With that, Member Greenblatt?
yes.
Okay, so that sounds like something that we can do. Could we do a couple of the recommendations we have before us in just one vote, Emily, you think? Like if we,
I'd like to, actually, I think we kind of
oh, member,
straight
who's
off
next?
of those. I've got some further discussion about.
Okay,
points
great.
and
Yeah,
get
so,
some-
so maybe we gather them all together and then list them and vote on them when we do. Okay, great. So we have more comments. So it sounds like we're comfortable with that, reducing the number of the cost for entry to 1. And then we'll warn them they're going to get a sanity phone call from a therapist if it's, they put it in below or something like that. Put more detail in there about what's required for that one. And then there's also the previous request to maybe split up the safety, system productivity, and congestion relief into a new number criteria, which was like 20, 15, 15. So those are the 2 things we've talked about so far. So does any members want to raise a new one?
Actually, I'd like to go back to the one that Leah had brought up. where
Okay,
you know,
great.
Kind of, but are we, yeah, I mean, I don't.
I
have your
I
light
do
on
too,
first?
same topic, so go for it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So about getting kind of a little bit into the weeds, the congestion relief angle, looking through the scoring sheets, it seems like that's going to be judged entirely, or at least in part, on LOS. And I'm thinking, why not VMT? Because, you know, it's 2025 and all that. And kind of those lines, the, even, you know, whether it's a Measure J project, and I know this would be odd because, I mean, this is being administered by the Measure J agency, but Measure J itself, it's 20 years old now, and the stuff that's on the list, I mean, you know, it was a somewhat, you know, freeway heavy measure. And a lot of those projects are done now, of course, but some of the stuff that's left, following up on what was said by some of the other members, it's maybe not the current day priorities. And so I think I'd want to maybe shift the emphasis more on like meeting SB 375 goals, for example. So just to throw that out there, somewhat provocative, I'll admit.
Anybody want to make a comment on that? Okay, I just say that some of the remaining projects are just ones that were really hard to get funded and really hard to move forward. So some of those might be worth prioritizing, but
I don't think there's enough money through this program to necessarily get to those, but also,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't like Highway 239 on there? You know, the freeway to Tracy, I mean, or Mountain House or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, that's
Well-
the kind of things like.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, specifically for that one, Jerry knows, we're trying to, the county has the goal of constructing a connector, cutting bypass through traffic through the town of Byron, so it's more of a safety project, and the overall 239 is gonna be a monster to get there, so speaking to your point, Andy, yeah, and I think in the past, we made changes to those tables too, like adding more like park and rides, mobility hubs. I think this was comments from our last iteration or last round. So I think we recognized that from last time from comments from this group. And we had added more descriptions of projects on those score sheet to expand the sample projects beyond, interchange improvements, Ox Lane. Like I think we added park and ride, we added mobility hubs, we added like gap closure to bike lanes. I can't get there fast enough, but I know we did that last time. Because I was the one who doctored that document.
I think for me, the bigger issue is really the VMT versus LOS.
So that, one note on that is that I don't know, maybe it's easier for the local jurisdictions on how to measure, like, is that something that you guys can do in your application, like note a VMT number, or is it still easier to do a LOS number? Like, that's something that maybe I can ask the group.
I would love to weigh in on that. I agree with VMT. I think it's very challenging to quantitatively show that in a grant application. However, I would say that there are certain improvements that we know are going to induce a reduction in VMT. So perhaps that could take some priority, but actually trying to calculate or quantitatively show a change or reduction in VMT seems to be a pretty high burden for a grant application.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, actually submitting a number, yeah, maybe not that, but I mean, reducing LOS, well, of course, that's where's the increase now going from F to A, whatever, but I mean, there's some numbers there, but to improve LOS basically means adding lanes, which means adding VMT, and then eventually LOS goes back down because of induced demand. So I just don't think it really has a place anymore.
But I think to address LOS, it might not be widening. You can do, adapt, like traffic signals that are more efficient, TSP, for example. But I understand where you're coming from. And then maybe to the point of not being able to quantify VMT, like what you're saying, Member Levine, maybe it is a qualitative discussion, like with your earlier question about giving flexibility for the evaluator to add points. If the project sponsor is able to explain qualitatively how this project will able to hit these things, but maybe not with exact numbers, but things that are obviously going to help. Maybe that's a way to get there too. Just wanted to add that.
Interesting. So what should we call that, a third proposal to have more of a qualitative opportunity to address VMT within which one of these categories, within congestion relief or?
I mean, to me, and I probably am like way over in left field, but congestion relief, that name in and of itself is a little bit of a misnomer, but I mean, to me, it's just like, get rid of LOS and replace with VMT. And how you go about doing that, that's, the devil in the details, maybe refer that back to staff. I don't know, I'm not as familiar with like the, SB 743 review, that kind of thing. Thank God the traffic engineers were able to do that for me when I was a city planner. But, is that something like you can look it up on a table? I don't know.
I guess in my projects, it is difficult. It's not something you can just spit out. I would just say that. And I hate to put that burden on anyone applying. I don't know. I'm hearing you guys want to totally remove LOS, or is it more leave LOS as is, plus some qualitative discussion on VMT. I don't know if we want, yes, I mean, I'm leaving it to discussion.
I think going back to the earlier point I was talking about for pedestrians as well, which you answered saying that we'll have some leeway in being able to assign points that don't meet this kind of rigid definition. Perhaps what I'm hearing is if there's language that further explains that, that would be helpful. Knowing that it's not just this metric score, that there's some flexibility or some less qualitative, so
More
qualitative improvements that we could evaluate.
Member Lockman.
Yeah, thanks. Going off Member Levine's point, I think a lot of the discussion we're having right now is based on the scores we're looking at here. Just looking at it without having this half-hour discussion, I see 50 points that go automatically to roadway expansion projects. And I mean, I think that that's really not where we are in the state of California today. Obviously, there are projects on the list and things that we need to do, but seeing this, it seems like the most competitive project would be a roadway expansion project. And I think we're not going to all solve this right now. And I feel for staff who's having to react to this right away. But I mean, I think that maybe rather than leaving it up to the discretion of the scoring committee, which ultimately it will come down to, I'm thinking for the next round, then maybe we need to get ahead of this a little bit more and think about how we can update this language a little bit. And yeah, I think just my final point there is I think we need to be more explicit about how like a bike and pedestrian or transit project could compete with a roadway project in the application materials and in the scoring. And because I have all of the attachments open right now and I'm just trying to process it and I'm just not seeing it very clearly.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Member Lockman.
Yeah. So I found the table that I was thinking of, that in the past cycles, we have amended this list. So this is under congestion relief, actually, right? Yes. So I know it's complicated with all, if being new, I've never seen this before. It is a lot of attachments. I apologize, that's how it's set up. But in the past, we've been continuing to add to this list to provide a little bit more clarity on to Member Lockman's point about how a non-freeway project or non-roadway project could compete against those type of projects. Like we've been amending this list to give a little bit more clarity and I want to open up more things for discussions, but I think this is when normally during the evaluation, the group will look at this and say, hey, I have a project that's, I don't know, like park and ride lot, like a mobility hub, so let's just say, and here it falls into 12 points for this table, and on the bottom it says that the team has the liberty or the flexibility to provide more points on the bottom here with the asterisk. So maybe we can up this one. I think we have put 1 to 2 points. Maybe we can put 3 to 4. I don't know, just to make it bridge the gap there a little bit. Or make, yeah, anyway, I just wanted to just point this table out to you all.
Can I ask, what's a interchange that upgrades to freeway standards?
So like 684 interchange that we have here down.
Oh, I thought this was roadway elements, not
It is
not highway.
Oh, I think it's kind of, I think roadway / freeway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just road in general, I guess. Because Ox Lane is on a freeway too, so. Like ramp metering, that's on a freeway. So yeah, I think, if we want to create even bigger flexibility, liberty for the scorers to give more points to bridge that gap, maybe the asterisk portion can say evaluation team can lower or higher by 3 to 4 points or whatever. I think if that helps. I know I'm maybe throwing more things in the mix.
No, I think that would definitely help. And
And I
it
also
doesn't
wanna-
solve the problem, but I think it would definitely help. And, if there's a way we can give points for people that are, doing positive work towards reducing VMT in the same way, that would be interesting also. Maybe this is something that we can direct the reviewers who are going to be us and some of us, the flexibility to be able to take steps towards where we want to be with things like VMT going forward.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
So I want to be mindful of
Yes.
you all, and
But
I don't want to hit losing quorum. I hope nobody
Okay.
needs to leave right away. I don't, that has happened in the past.
Well,
So I want to make sure
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I think you've heard on that one. Is there an additional item we would like to raise?
So
You
can
sure?
I get confirmation that you are you would like to, I think Jay is keeping a list.
Yes.
So keeping the 1 million as the lower threshold,
Yep.
keeping the 5 points for the other secure funds. This one, the asterisk part, maybe, am I hearing up that 1 or 2 point discretion for the evaluation team to something else other than 1 or 2? If you can provide direction on that, maybe we can move back to those 50 points that we talked about earlier. So let me,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like 1 is not enough.
yeah, it's 1 or 2, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm leaning towards 3, but what, does anybody else want to throw out a number to
So
give the discretion on?
Yeah, so it's up or down, so just FYI.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's 1 to 3 points I'm hearing, so the 18 can be as low as 15, 12 can be as much as 15.
Yeah.
So that would make it equal.
Anybody comfortable with that or not comfortable with that or don't understand what we're talking about?
Yeah, yeah, did I just? Rather.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the complexity of this issue, and I'm sorry for you all for having to take this on. Like, I've never seen a grant program that funds such a diverse list of projects, so this is really challenging exercise. But yes, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. And yes, I think that gives the scoring team a bit more flexibility that I think we would need.
So we'll add that to the list for revision. Okay, so if I can go back to that other slide with the points. Up. Yeah, so I think we pause on the 25, whether it's like 12 and a half, 12 and a half, or is it something else? So the other note was to split those 2 things, safety as one line, system productivity as another. And I think we were kind of in the middle of determining what that looks like.
Can I
Did we get the 12?
piggyback off Member Greenblatt's potential scoring question? So I would agree to splitting out system productivity, but I'm in the description here, in the attachment G, I'm seeing a lot of overlap between system productivity and congestion relief. So I probably would opt to score safety just a little bit higher, and then so perhaps 30 or 20-30, and then 10 and 10 for system productivity and congestion relief.
Yeah, so I have the notes I took down is safety for 20 points, productivity 15, and then relief, congestion relief 15. Was that?
Right, and I'm
You're
offering
saying
an
more,
alternate to that,
okay.
right, because of the overlap in system productivity and congestion relief.
Okay. So I have it, safety 30 and then 10 for the other 2 categories.
Thank you, Member Gollier. Are you comfortable with that, Member Greenblatt, or?
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like we have a compromise there. So 20, 15, 15, I think is what we're looking at on that one, right?
30, 10, 10 now.
Oh, 30, yeah, that's, sorry. 30, 10, 10, got it. I thought that, but it didn't come out that way. Sorry about that. Okay, so should we do a vote on these 3 things just to make sure that we all have that, or do we need to vote, or are they just taking input?
Yeah, just taking a point. This is just being brought to you as an informational item seeking recommendation. So no vote.
Okay, and we'll look at the minutes from next time, make sure we got all that right coming out the next time.
Yeah, so maybe if we could just repeat what we have listed for our staff to work on in the final package of the criteria. I'll let Jay.
Yeah, so I have 3 things listed down. One is to change the scoring table points. breaking out the safety and productivity items. So it'll be 30 assigned to safety, 10 to productivity, and then 10 for congestion relief. And then the second item is to lower the threshold back to $1 million. But to be clear on the requirements, I guess what's needed to go through the federal process. And then lastly, change the flexibility of the scoring from 1 to 2 points to within 3 points.
I guess just, yeah, that would be for anywhere where that flexibility is offered. Because it appears, I think, in a couple of places to my recollection. So yeah, we'll make that change.
Okay, great. Thank you for all that great input. And it did take a little more time, but we're well organized. We're all taking notes. Thank you for your patience,
No, thanks.
Stephanie.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
it.
feedback.
Okay.
Helpful.
All right, great. So that brings us back to public comment, unless we have more comments from the committee, which I don't think we have at this time. Okay. So if anybody would like to speak from the public, please submit a speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff will call upon you. Emily, do we have any written or remote public comments?
We do not have any written or remote public comments.
All right, great. Thank you, Jay. It's been interesting. Next item is an action item. It will be presented by John Huang regarding the countywide broadband strategic plan. And I'm trying to talk slowly. Okay, you are in position. John, looking forward to this.
Good afternoon, Chair Weeks. How much time do I have?
Talk fast.
So let me share my screen here. You don't want to see. We brought this item, the broadband strategic plan, to you I think late last year. I wasn't able to present. Yeah, I wasn't here to present, but my consultant did present, and I heard good things that you guys enjoyed his presentation. So I'm gonna try to continue that excitement and exuberation. So this item, we've been working this for a long time, and at this time, we're asking this TCC group to recommend plan. And we attached the executive summary in the packet, and if you wanted to look at the larger document, there was a link. So hopefully at least you get a chance to browse through it. It's just an expanded version of what the executive summary provided. Again, just a little bit of background. This project came about from a call for projects from the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission. And they had a LATA program, which is the Local Agency Technical Assistance Program, which we applied for and were successful to receive a grant. And the whole purpose of the grant was to look at developing a strategy to ban broadband to the unserved and underserved communities. And CPUC kind of lays out where all these communities are based on their maps, which is the 335 census blocks within the county. So this is basically the project right here. So if you kind of help me, just kind of bear with me. So our project is really the blue bubble there, which is connecting the middle mile, which is the green bubble, to the last mile, which is the unserved and underserved communities. So keep in mind that we're building infrastructure. We're not providing the internet service. That's where the ISP comes in. So we're that bridge between the middle mile, which is the green, and the red portion there. So that's basically, in a nutshell, that's what the strategic plan is. And along the way, you all know that we do have the Smart Signals project in design right now. And as far as CCTA's purpose, we want to leverage the strategic plan and try to incorporate some of the routes on the Smart Signals to deploy fiber in the future. not that legible, but really it just we wanted to show you where the concentration of household, the households are. Of course, the red area is 30 units. Could be household, could be other type of facility that lacks the service, that lacks access to high-speed internet, and the high speed again is 100 megabits per second. And then you go down to the yellow, which is 0 to 10, up to 10 units. I'll call it units. And you can see the units, the yellow, you can have a large area in the yellow and a small area in the yellow. So it really depends on the number of units within that. So this is depicts the middle mile, which is the blue line. Now, we've heard and we know that this is Caltrans' responsibility to construct. Whether they build it or not, we're going to connect to that. So, and then we've heard directions from CPUC. That's the way we should approach this project. Besides identifying what the middle mile is, we have this map doesn't show the unserved mass market location, but the subsequent map will. But we've identified where the existing and planned fiber are. It's talking to the cities and the local jurisdictions. We may have missed something, but I think we've captured a lot of the areas already. And then also, if you see the light green, barely see the light green on your screen there, that's where the ISP proposed to provide service. I'll get into the FFA grant a little bit later on in the presentation. So we understand that the ISP are interested in deploying their services in these regions. Again, I'm not an expert on fiber. These guys behind me are, but these are the different ways that fibers are installed and various different methodologies. So we just want to show you, if you consider a 288 strand conduit, these are the different types that we can install, and it depends on what purpose it serves, whether CCTA wants to include conduits and fiber to potentially lease down the line or even split off to allow cities to use. That's something that's a little bit in the very near future we have to decide here. Okay, so this is your whole network. Here now the green dots shows up. These are the unserved mass market locations, right? So we try to identify the broadband network limits. That's what we're trying to do here in the bigger picture. We, meaning CCTA, is going to eventually build this purple network. So once we identify the purple network, we want to identify what are the low-hanging fruits or prioritization or best return on investment. So we determine that, well, if we build something and we can reach out to as many units as possible based on the cost effectiveness, that way to go, right? So we established these criterias. Again, focusing on the kind of what you guys did with the STIP there the last presentation. So we kind of put weight on the unserved units, and then dependencies. So if we, for instance, dependencies is if we have a segment, let's say a 3-mile segment, and the first mile connects to the middle mile. So the second and third segment is dependent on the first segment. So the first segment is obviously going to carry more weight and have more scoring. This is a short project list that we came up with. I glanced at this and I'm glad that it has projects throughout the county. It kind of worked that way, but I'm glad it showed up that way. But we used that scoring criteria to identify the quote-unquote priority projects for the county. And again, this is just a first attempt at this, and we can certainly make adjustments or bring up other projects as as needed, based on the grant programs available and what our priorities are, if it has changed over time. So the complete list you can find in the full report. Again, this is another snapshot of what the project is. Again, so this delve into the short, mid, and long-term phases. So as I kind of explained the last slide, where we have the different segments that connects from the blue line to the red dots, right? So that's essentially the what we're trying to show here. So that's basically the strategy of the plan. And bottom line, the CCTA may get into the business of building fiber infrastructure. We will not be the ISP, but we will enable ISP to come in and install and provide ISP services to the underserved and unserved communities. However, these infrastructure that we put out there, we can leverage it. And if it's located in the right areas and can tap into the smart signals corridor, then we would certainly look into that option there. So low level design is in April. So that's just basically coming up with some standards, some specifications to help cities or help us in towards the next step. And then before I get to the last dot, there actually is a second bullet there that that just came up recently, very, very recently. So I mentioned the federal funding account, FFA. There was a round one I think last year, and it was a call for projects for applicants to submit projects to deploy ISP. I'm going to keep it that kind of simple. 2 applicants proposed to CPUC, AT&T and Xfinity, and they did not get the project because CPUC is encouraging public agencies to apply. So that's where we came in. That's where we come in, and we've had a lot. And actually, we've also reached out, even at the very beginning of this project, we reach out to county staff and then inquire about, their interest in kind of being the lead agency. But I think at the end, it was decided that CCTA might take on this part. So round 2 is coming up very quickly, and CCTA needs to put a plan together and a scope and a really a implementation plan and submit it within the next, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks, very quickly here. So having this plan, having this draft ready and having it approved and by the board would be very helpful in this whole process. So that's about $16 million that we're talking about. So that list that I just shared with you earlier, I think that totaled about 22 million. So we can certainly apply for 16 million. And then even after that, there's more money coming on, which is the last bullet here, which is the BEAD, the Broadband Equity Access for Deployment. So this is a much higher amount of money, I think 40 million plus for the county alone. So each county is given these money by formula. So this is what we've planned for a while now. And then it's kind of coming to fruition with the upcoming opportunities to actually pursue some large amount of funding. With that, I'm going to stop there and take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Kept up the intensity. I like it. So the next, this item, I wanted to just see if you can say again, just because of some of the public comment that I've heard, is it doesn't seem like people are clear on what we mean by unserved and underserved. And I know we brought that up last time and you made some adjustments. Thank you. But it seems still people aren't understanding that. Can you just say that one more time? How did you arrive at those dots, not in deep detail, just, you know, can you clarify that that's not, well, go ahead and clarify it. Just-
Okay, I appreciate, so.
Thank you.
So it has nothing to do with economics. It has nothing to the areas or anything like that. So unserved is basically a unit, a household that doesn't get internet access. Underserved is an area that has limited access and maybe not the full 100 megabits per second that CPUC would like. That's the that's the bare.
Great,
basic
yeah, and I think
definition.
that making that clear in all of this is super important, Dick, and as we could see with some of the comments we've all seen that people aren't clear on that. They think that this is a, you know, like some kind of other type of priority areas or something, and it's not that. So I just want to make that clear. So thank you for answering that right out of the gate. So now, does anybody else have any comments or questions about the plan that they'd like clarified at this time? Because we are here to do it. Member Kerr, I can't see your full name.
Rodney.
Jim, go Jim.
Thanks, John. So it seems like with the countywide smart signals project, which is going to be installing a lot of the similar infrastructure, especially for interconnects, if they decide to use fiber. It seems like that should be like the linchpin of the plan. It's like trying to take these, what look like trunk lines on the map, and then tying them into the investments that the county is making for other purposes. So that's just a comment. The second is, so it wasn't entirely clear to me how to use a transportation analogy, what's the first and last mile? How do you get from those trunk lines to those needy households?
Thank you for the question. So first off, the smart signals, we are actually not deploying any fiber optics for that because we only have like $35 million and fiber is expensive. Well, our plan for that smart signals was to leverage and utilize existing conduit, like for example, City of San Ramon. And actually, if you allow me to expand on that, we had planned to use existing fiber that was installed in San Ramon. And when we went out to do the field survey, those conduits wasn't in the condition that we was able to use. So we had to look at other alternatives for communication. So again, wherever there was existing fiber, we would use that, but the majority of the smart signals does not use fiber optics. We're using radios and wireless. The second part is I'll go back to this map here, and maybe the technical guys can explain this better than I can. I tend to use layman's term, but if you look at the blue line, right? So the blue line is the Caltrans middle mile, right? Is that right? Yeah, middle mile, okay. So if can you see my cursor? Okay, let's say I'm gonna take a crack at this one. Okay, so this one. Okay, so maybe that's not a good example. Let's go with this one right here, orange. So our project is to connect from the middle mile, which is the blue line, to the red dots. That's the strategic plan. So we can build this in increments, right? But eventually, this is who we want to serve are these units out here. Same here. This is probably a good pictorial. So you see how the green dots are concentrated here. So we need to get from this blue line, which is the middle mile, to this area right here. So that's essentially what the purpose of the strategic plan is. I hope that kind of helps.
Okay, thank you, John. Are there other questions about the plan that Member Fahey?
You mentioned something about Caltrans and the blue line, and they're not working on it. I mean, I guess that's where I kind of lose why we're coming up with a strategic plan to connect to nothing.
Because that's the direction of CPUC.
Okay.
That Caltrans is slated, and what's the year that they're supposed to complete? 2026? Okay, so Caltrans needs to complete that middle mile by 2026. How or when they start or when they complete, that is outside of our purview. But this grant, as per direction by the CPUC, it indicates, it told us to just focus on your segments within the county.
I guess then I would add, how are we prioritizing when we don't know what they're gonna prioritize?
Oh, the middle mile, yeah, I
You
mean,
know what I mean? If they're gonna build East County first, then I would think our priority should be there too, to connect to it.
I agree, but at this time, there's no information on where their priorities are, but
Okay.
we have our priorities. So again, ultimately, that whole network, whether they build Central County, West County first, there's no way anybody can know right this time instead of, short of communicating to the Caltrans. But right now, I think we just need to focus on the county and what our priorities are, and then cross our fingers and hope that network's in there.
Any further clarifications? Member Smith?
Yeah, question, and this kind of builds off of what Chris was asking earlier. So the elephant in the room, obviously, is the two public comments submitted by the same writer, and I will say that they were filled with invective, which was both unfortunate and counterproductive. But one question arose in my mind, which is, related to, and actually you did speak to this, about the, the equity and, why is a transportation authority doing this? And I think I understand that, but the decision to authorize that was the CPUC. They've already done it, and that's not in question anymore, correct?
Can you,
Like the
do what?
the fact that 2CTA is getting into the fiber business, I suppose you could say, and that this project, which clearly will benefit the smart signals and everything else that the 2CTA normally does, that it also meets the standards, the CPUC standards of providing internet access to underserved communities. That's their decision to make, and they've already made it by granting the grant to CTA, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Are there any other questions about the plan, or can we? Okay,
Here, let me have
another comment.
our crackpot consultant here. Maybe you can add, enhance, or maybe
Yeah,
to the
so-
conversation.
So yeah, I
Introduce
wanted
yourself.
to touch
Introduce
base. I
yourself.
don't remember.
Can you just
yeah,
quickly identify your name?
So
and
yeah, my
stuff?
name is Sean
Thank you.
Rainey. I'm with Kimley Horn. We're the consultants that helped with the report you read, or executive summary, all that, and this PowerPoint. But I wanted to go back to your question, where we have been told by CPUC to assume Caltrans installs all of it by the end of 2026. That's what they promised. Obviously, we don't know that. And that's why we have, different short-term, midterm, long-term in each of the areas. So if the East County does get built first, obviously some of those things that are identified as midterm projects now will, become short-term, and some of the stuff in the West County that doesn't have the middle mile yet will become midterm or long-term. Like, this is a living document. We can make those changes as we need to. That's why we've kind of got some short-term, midterm, and long-term in each area. And then, yeah, as for the comments we got and the equity discussion, it not only was CPUC already made the decision that CCTA is going to be, in charge of this, responsible for this. That's where we got all these green dots. We didn't go online and find some internet download speed database for the county. Like, CPUC identified all of these as the priority areas. And they're the ones that are responsible for telling us exactly where we need to go. We just do with that data what we've done here and said how many of them are in each area, how much is it going to cost for us to get there, what's the best bang for our buck, and that's gonna be our priority projects. So we're not responsible for, we don't have some secret agenda to do a certain area. It's how many green dots are there as defined by CPUC.
And then actually this map is online, so you can actually see, is it interactive map?
If I make it abundantly clear, I am not making any assumption that there's any ill intent or anything at all like that. I basically kind of wanted to just address the public comment and put that to rest for our purposes of what we're deciding on.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the clarifications. Really appreciate that. Okay, so we're almost there. And any further comments or questions about the plan before we make our motions? Okay, it looks like we don't. So I think we need to do public comment first. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if anyone from the public would like to speak, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call upon you. Do we have any written or remote public comments, Emily?
So we don't have any virtual public comments, but we did receive 2 public comments from Brian Swanson regarding this item that were provided to the committee ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a motion at this time to approve the authority's countywide broadband strategic plan as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Stamps. Sounds like we're moving. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Member Fahey. Emily, please conduct a roll call vote.
Member Chen,
Yes.
Member Conrady,
Yes.
Yes.
Member Doe,
Yes.
Member Fahey,
Yes.
Member Golier, Member Greenblatt,
Yes.
Member Levine,
Yes.
Member Alt Lockman,
Yes.
Member Panganiban,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Stamps.
Yes.
Member Warts.
Yes.
Vice Chair Play,
Yes.
Chair Weeks.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously with members Boardman, LeBeau, McLean, Nelson, and Ortiz absent.
Thank you very much, John. Really appreciate it. All right, that brings us to the last 2 items. Other business. Does anybody have other business they'd like to raise today?
I can keep it brief because I know you all have heard enough from me today.
A haiku.
I just wanted, it related to the ITP. Of course, we've already, as committee member Greenblatt noted, that, we had passed a resolution asking for them to bring that back and they're not here. And I know myself, and I believe member Greenblatt and perhaps others have reached out to CTA asking about why not. And we've been told that the responses will be coming, but we have yet to see that. I do want to note that I think it was earlier this week, that Tim Hale and Sioux CTA staff met with a couple of the general managers and then staff in place of general managers of the transit operators and presented pretty much what we saw when this came before us, the ITP, and showing where there would be transit-only lanes, in YVR and Treat and San Pablo and all the rest. And I believe they're seeking input or support from the transit GMs, although there hasn't been any direction given to my knowledge on that. I wasn't at the meeting, but just to inform the TCC about that. That's all.
Okay, appreciate the update. Hopefully we'll hear more soon. Okay, any other business that anybody would like to raise? Member Chen?
Yeah, just want to congratulate Jerry for his retirement. He's a longtime member, so want to acknowledge that. And this will be his.
I was trying to get out of here without that.
Yeah, I am, yeah. But you fail. No, and just want to thank him for all his time on this committee. And he was actually my first boss at the county as well, so.
Congratulations on
Thank
behalf
you.
of the committee. Okay, are there any other comments or other business? Okay, that makes us adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around.